Welcome to Mastering CS Candid Leader Insights, the podcast where we dive into the world of customer success with industry leaders. I'm your host, Irina Cismas, and today I'm joined by Sarah Young, Customer Success Manager at Hoptroff, a precision timing platform for financial services and other regulated industries. Sarah, I'm really happy to have you here. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for inviting me, Irina.
You've worked across sales, go to market, customer success, coaching, and now fintech. What's the one thread that ties it all together for you?
That's a great question to start with. I think for me, and I've worked across the various specialisms that you've mentioned, but ultimately it's helping people make decisions in pretty much high stakes environments. I've spent my career predominantly in financial markets. Nowhere greater is there a high stakes environment than financial markets. Whether it's a customer under regulatory pressure, it's a sales team navigating a complex deal, or an individual from a coaching perspective trying to build resilience. The work is around cutting out the noise, creating that clarity. And I've always gravitated towards roles where you can help people translate, make that connection and add value, whether it's to a customer with a customer insight, helping them navigate the outcome that they're trying to make, or indeed with an individual as well, in terms of how they can build that resilience, increase that motivation, and managing in what I think in the current working environment is, again, high stakes.
Today, you are a customer success manager at Hop. For people hearing that name for the first time, what does the company actually do and who are you helping?
Okay, so Hoptroff, we provide secure, traceable, multi-resilient time synchronization across infrastructure, critical infrastructure. So timing, I think, is a utility that everyone takes for granted, but everything runs on time, whether it's your trading platform, whether it's taking it into another industry, catching a train, and so on. So it's a compliance requirement and also risk management requirement as well. So we support financial institutions, financial exchanges, payment providers, and critical infrastructure operators. So we help them prove that their timing is accurate, that it's resilient to GNSS disruption, and it's fully auditable. So essentially, we're keeping everything as tightly controlled as it needs to be. It's about avoiding outages that they can explain to the regulators, to the internal governments and risk management in terms of how they are reporting time. And it's giving ultimately the end users, the trading teams, the operations teams, and so on, the confidence that their timing is as accurate as it possibly can be.
From an outside view, it sounds complicated. In that kind of business, what does customer success actually mean? What does a strong CS conversation focus on?
It's a high stakes environment that we're operating in. We're behind the scenes, we're invisible, but we're absolutely critical to our customers' business and beyond. So customer success for me and for our team is ensuring that customers can rely on us, that they can operate with confidence. The implications within their organization and beyond, if they can't do that, are significant. So it's enabling them from a technical, regulatory, and operational perspective that they can operate their timing infrastructure. And with that, a customer success conversation covers a number of different things. And some of these it's the outcome. Are they getting the service they need? The resilience and the auditability that they need, their compliance reporting, for example, to keep governance and risk and compliance teams and ultimately the board comfortable with how they are operating. It's also about risk. If they can't manage the time requirements that they have, and if they you can't manage what you can't manage what you can't measure. So it's enabling them to do that. It's helping them with their readiness as well. So we work a lot with our customers very closely, the annual due diligence, the cybersecurity assessment. So there's that cadence of process that they need to go through, and we help them with that. But also looking much more forward facing, how we can help them scale as well across the organization. So where they need to scale their timing infrastructure, perhaps not just for those regulatory requirements, but from an operational efficiency play as well. So beyond those sort of regulated servers, as it were, within an organization, we can help them prepare for that and look at how that project will play out. And typically this could take absolutely months. And we're a very small part, typically within a firm's transformation projects where timing fits in. So yeah, the main, I think, going back to what I said initially, it's enabling our customers to have that confidence. And that's the key.
Because you also, yeah.
And it's future proofing. I think that's probably, future proofing is the best outcome.
I don't often speak with CS leaders who also have that coach lens, and you also coach on performance and resilience. I'm curious, and what I want to ask you comes through this angle. When people say we need to build customer success properly, what does that actually mean to you, and where do you start? Because you have something that others don't. You also coach.
Yeah, I chose to go down the coaching route, and to give a little bit of history, it's actually a process that was used at my son's school when he was at senior school to help the students and the teachers build up their resilience, their motivation, their performance. So it's a strategy that they use there, and also translates into the corporate world and into the personal world. So getting the best out of your day, managing your time, to excuse the pun, managing how you're going to do your best work, and looking at all the factors that may play into that. It's being, I think it goes back to preparation, knowing how your day, or planning as best you can with your day to do your focus work, knowing that other distractions or priorities will come into the day. So that's really the first thing, is how that coaching plays into looking across the team. What do we need to do today? What's our first priority? And particularly in the world that I operate in at Hoptroff, things can change very quickly. If there's a technical issue that needs addressing, clearly that needs addressing immediately. But at the same time, there's a lot of sort of project work that's ongoing, there's customer onboarding that's ongoing. So building that sort of successful function and team is looking at how to ensure you're building those good relationships with the customers, so you really get under the skin of what they're interested in and what's driving their decision process, and really having that understanding and empathy as to what's going on in their world, what's important to them, the outcomes that they need to reach, and adjusting those as we need to, but also giving them that confidence that we can help them on that journey as well. So yeah, I think it's having that self-awareness, but also the awareness amongst the team as well, as to how we each interact and work together to help that customer.
And where do you see teams blaming the process when the real issue is habits or behavior?
I think it goes back to communication, I would say. In the sort of the environment we work in, there's lots of tools and processes and automations and AI and so on that can be very helpful, clearly. But ultimately, you're dealing with people, and it's going back to that individual or that team. And quite often we may be dealing with a company, a client, where we may never know who the ultimate key stakeholder is because of the expansive nature of that organization. But it's remembering that ultimately it is about people and communication. And I think within, whether it's in the team internally, within Hoptroff, for example, do we have as much information as we can? Have we surfaced all of the information that we need? Who do we need to speak to internally to make sure we've built up that strong view as to if there's a particular issue or we're looking to onboard a customer and the different components that we need to ensure are in place, as well as within the customer as well? Have we given them the full picture as best we know? Have we got the information we need from them? So it absolutely, for me personally, goes back to helping our customers, and it's through communication.
And what would you prioritize first? I'm curious. Is it better processes, better judgment, better tools, a better mix of all of those, maybe a better energy management?
That's an interesting one. And actually, I was thinking about that. I think for me, I think it's actually having good energy. And that goes back to communication. I think the two are hand in hand. And if people are overwhelmed or haven't got that sort of focus, and the lack of energy can be negative and positive. And I think having that positive energy management that will enable individuals to have that sort of clarity of thought and ultimately judgment as well. So I would say that actually, and perhaps it also means that on occasion, okay, I need to go and walk around the block for 5 minutes to clear my head, just to bring things down a bit, think through a situation that you're trying to deal with, rather than sitting at your desk and letting it build up and become distracting.
And if you join the CS team and had to assess it quickly, what would you look at first? How they run the work, how they measure success, or how they show up with customers?
I think it's a combination. And I think first and foremost, going back to people, it's what are the, let's say, looking at the customer base. Who are they? What are their requirements? What are they using? Getting a good understanding in terms of what the current status is with that customer. I think that's really important. I think also overlaying that with the technical requirements. So who do we need, let's say, on a call, for example? There's different aspects. Is it a technical call? It could also involve commercial aspects. They could be looking towards the future as well, in terms of this is what we're building. We want to surface that with our customers. So it's do we need the product guy on the call? So thinking around having that, going back to that clarity with what's the agenda, what's the outcome that we want to achieve, but more importantly, that the customer wants to achieve, and working back from that basis. But also going back to the point you made around that process, making sure you've got the documentation that can be followed up as needed, capturing the conversations and let's say if there's a particular issue, making sure you've got all of the components of that. And again, within Hoptroff, that can be quite technical. So it's having the right people in the room on the conversation. So I think it's also being able to, at any given moment, you may have to pivot into a different dimension as well, and really reading what's going on, but also preempting what may be coming down the track as well, and just ensuring you're capturing as much as you can in that moment.
You mentioned technology and your technology and a bit of AI earlier. And what I realized is the exposure to it basically changes the dynamic of the customer success manager's role. And I'm curious, what would you, if you would have to put a team in place from scratch and you only have 3 positions, what roles would you want in the room first and why? What's important for you? to drive and help your customers?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think covers off different specialisms. I think particularly, again, drawing back to the experience and the organization I'm currently in, but I think having someone who can strategically manage those customer relationships, the outcomes, and looking at the commercial aspect as well. I think customer success has very much changed in recent years from being it's a support function and you're fixing problems, which clearly is still very important, having that proactive and reactive support function in place, but also looking at keeping the customer in play, so reducing and ideally eliminating churn, looking at the expansion opportunities or new products, hearing what the customer might be interested in or has surfaced as perhaps a new requirement that hasn't been thought about from a product perspective. So I think certainly that sort of strategic mindset, that strategic customer success manager to own the various aspects of the customer relationship. I think secondly would absolutely be, and probably as importantly, is the technical specialism. Certainly within Hoptroff, I wouldn't be able to do my job as a commercial and strategic and relationship customer success manager versus the technical knowledge that's needed to resolve a customer issue as part of the onboarding process and so on. So those two go absolutely hand in hand. And there's a very strong cross-functional relationship between technical and the sort of strategic nature of customer success. Also looking at it's that project management, the operational lead as well, because as a customer success manager, again, it's going back to being able to manage what you can measure, really. And if you aren't aware of various different outcomes or issues, then how can you ensure that the right processes are in place for not only that customer, but going forward across the organization? Is looking at the data, understanding what good looks like. I think certainly the fact that you may not hear from a customer is not necessarily a good thing at all, because that could be surfacing discontent or the fact that they may not be using as well they could, and why that might be. So it's I think a combination of all of those three: strategic, technical, operations.
And the last question. You've worked in environments where clients may not complain loudly before something becomes serious. How do you tell the difference between a customer who is genuinely fine and one who is quietly drifting into risk?
That's a good question. And yeah, I think as I touched on previously, I think sometimes some customers have a different dynamic in any event, but certainly what I would look out for is, why is that customer not engaging? What might be the reason behind that? So it's, in any event, it's having that regular cadence of communication, providing insights, providing value, understanding, putting those quarterly business reviews in place, for example, and they will vary from customer to customer. Certainly there may be a customer that has from a much broader relationship with you because they have a much broader scalable service that you're providing versus perhaps a smaller, more localized customer, but equally both are really important. And it's having that discipline internally to think, okay, we haven't heard from XYZ for a little while, or why might that be? But it's also trying to offer some insight as well that would give them reason to have that regular dialogue. But yeah, I think it's the alarm bell of certainly of the customer that you don't hear from that would determine how can we improve that and what do we need to do and why is that. But also I think certainly, again, going back to Hoptroff, we work with channel partners. So we may not have the direct relationship with the customer, but it's having that good relationship with the channel partner as well, and understanding how can we work together, because it's in both our mutual interest to have a happy customer. And quite often I can look back at experiences. Last year, we had a technical issue across the network technology. That's the nature of it. And had some very difficult conversations or regular conversations where there was a technical issue that needed resolving. And I think when you have those problematic conversations, as it were, where something isn't going the way it should, that can also be really positive. The outcome can be really positive. So although at the time they could be quite stressful conversations or difficult or whatever it might be, I think that can also surface other factors as well that can be positive. So it doesn't always have to be the good, happy conversation. Quite often, opportunity comes out of those difficult discussions.
Sarah, I really enjoyed this. You brought such an interesting perspective to the conversation. And I think this is because you've seen customer success from so many different angles. And I think there was a lot in here for anyone trying to build stronger teams, manage stakeholders better, and think a bit more carefully about what good customer success actually looks like. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and mastering customer success.